there is going to be a great shock. The shock of each Christian if Jesus comes back, because we've got a disclaimer here that there has never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form of any race, creed, or color by the name of Jesus Christ, also known as Serapis. Of course, this is a higher level of knowledge. What will be the greatest shock to every Christian if Jesus comes back today or in our generation? Not one Christian thinks about the following. If Jesus ever lived, would he recognize Christianity if he comes back today? If you answer yes, which church or ministry will he attend? Please answer this. Why would he attend that church? Because there are many major branches of Christianity: Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, and Protestant traditions. Protestants have got their subdivisions: the Baptists, the Methodists, the Lutherans, the Pentecostals, and thousands of independent indigenous churches, e.g. African Apostolic Mazion. There are also other non-denominational and independent congregations, which are often counted separately of the 45,000 or so denominations. On the other hand, Christianity encompasses a wide range of doctrinal differences, many of which are diametrically opposite and opposed to each other, with a lot of historical schisms, denominational splits, and ongoing theological debates. Some of the most significant doctrinal divisions arose from over 10 to 15 major diametrically opposed doctrines, though countless nuanced variations also exist. These differences often define denominational identities, e.g. Calvinists versus Arminian, Catholics versus Protestants. Which doctrines will Jesus recognize? If you are a Christian, have you ever thought about this seriously? If yes, what was your answer? If no, why not? You can read our book, Free From God. It will illustrate a lot of other factors. You get this book from Amazon. It's very clear that we have been deceived, or a lot of people have been deceived by gods, as well as by doctrines formulated by men. This book, Free From God, illustrates that clearly and comprehensively. But let's go back now. What billions of Christians do not know, and they are not taught, is that the story of their religion and spirituality did not emerge as one seamless continuity with any older spirituality, but it came out of a radical reinterpretation, which we call a hyperstitional alchemy, where ancient Jewish rituals were stripped off their original context and repurposed to serve a novel theological agenda. To Christians, to skeptics and seekers, what if everything you know about Christianity started with a lie? What if it's true that the Christian belief and practice that we see today, even if you critique it, bears very little resemblance to the one purposefully allowed to emerge in the New Testament under the guise of Jesus of Nazareth, whom we know, of course, didn't exist? What if the doctrines you recite, the rituals you perform, the power structures, and the spiritual power that you demonstrate, the authority that you speak of, the God that you teach, is all but an engineered, ambitious theological premise, which came 300 years after the so-called crucifixion? For 2,000 years, the church fathers like Augustine, Origen, Tertullian have been venerated as guardians of sacred truth. But what if they were something far more human, political operators, philosophical innovators, and narrative architects who built a Jesus out of a Jewish movement into a Roman-friendly religion today? What if the eternal truths of Christianity were not revealed but constructed, stitched together from African, Greek philosophies, imperial politics of Rome, and the creative readings of Jewish scriptures? Yet all this will not be the shock of each Christian if Jesus comes back today or in our generation. To Christians, whether you are a devout or doubting one, you deserve to know. You deserve to know how your faith was shaped. the Trinity, the original sin, and the substitutional atonement. These are cornerstones of Christian theology. They were nowhere in Jesus' teachings. They emerged centuries later, forged in debates and power struggles. Does this diminish your faith? Or does it challenge you to separate the radical rabbi from the religion that bears his name? These are the councils that shaped your belief today. Before these councils came, and before these councils stated their doctrines, the religion you call Christianity did not exist. But something else existed, and something else built that Christianity. And these are the steps, the major key decisions were made by these councils. To one who is curious, how did an illiterate Jewish preacher who was executed politically gave birth to a global spirituality or global religion? The answer lies not in divine providence, but in the hyperstitional alchemy of the early church. Stories so potent, they rewrote reality for those that believe in the characters of that story. This is proof that there will be horrible shock of each Christian if Jesus comes back, because the unthinkable became undeniable. A failed apocalyptic prophet became a pre-existent God. How celebration of a Jewish liberation festival, Passover, was recast as a sin-obsessed ritual. How a fisherman and farmers birthed a theology that outclassed Plato. It was by conflating Passover's liberation narrative with Yom Kippur's atonement ritual. The early church fathers constructed a new religion centered on a fiction that was crucified on a fictitious cross as a cosmic sin offering. These patristic thinkers came up with an innovation built on hermeneutical sleight of hand, transforming Jewish symbols into tools of doctrinal power. A fallacy, yes, but built of Greek philosophy and Roman hierarchy. It seeks to position Jesus' crucifixion as the fulfillment of Jewish prophecy, misapplying it, and also misapplying Passover's symbolism to invent a soteriology of blood atonement. This is very important to understand, because Passover is redemption from physical slavery. Passover is not a sin offering. When you celebrate Easter this year, you are not celebrating Jesus' crucifixion. You are celebrating your own crucifixion fallacy. The Jewish Passover commemorates the Israelites' redemption from physical slavery, framed as a communal celebration of freedom. The lamb's blood on doorpost was a protective sign, not a sin offering. Rabbinic scholars teach that the Passover Haggadah, called the Exodus the master story, which is the moving from slavery to freedom with no mention of sin or guilt. Yom Kippur. This ritual, similar to our African way of casting out evil and casting out bad spells, Yom Kippur explicitly is about atonement. This is where the high priest transfers the sins of Israel on a scapegoat known as Azazel. And Azazel is an alien or reptilian spirit. And then sins are transferred on that Azazel. Just like us when we do our own rituals, when we put these sins on a goat or on a chook or on a tree to carry away all the iniquities. You read Leviticus 16:22. It copies exactly what us as Africans practiced. This ritual cleanses the people and the sanctuary, except as Leviticus 16:30, addressing morality and spiritual guilt, not political oppression. This sin offering, Khatat or Shakashata, and the guilt offering, Asham, are central, not Passover. So the church fathers' hermeneutical hijacking runs contra even to what Jesus taught when viewed with what Christians practice today, which is the number one reason why Jesus will reject a lot of people. This is the shock of each Christian if Jesus comes back, is to realize that Jesus did not abolish that law, but fulfilled it by practice. And Christians abhors the law that they should use, because it's called antinomianism, which is against nomos, law, against the law. It's a doctrine that is popular, and they call the law of Moses legalistic. But Jesus says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out devils in your name, and done many wonders in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you, depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. And lawlessness is the definition of sin. There it is. Sin is the transgression of the law. 1 John 3:4. So not everyone who says Lord, Lord will enter the kingdom of heaven, because they have failed to say no to sin. And they claim that Jesus abolished the law, that Jesus came to abolish the law. But Jesus said, I have not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. How did he fulfill it? By doing what it says. This will be the greatest shock to every Christian if Jesus comes back. Because we know that, of course, he never lived, but we are going by their texts. Why do Christians not believe circumcision? Because they don't practice what Jesus said. Because Jesus says, in the Old Testament, he says, any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from the people. He has broken my covenant. The congregation of Israel representing the church today. And when Jesus was 8 days old, he was circumcised. And today, you are not circumcised and you say you follow Jesus. Each Christian will have to answer that if Jesus comes. They say, however, circumcision is of the heart of the Israel covenant with their God. And then they deny it because Paul, who actually was circumcised, somewhere said it is of the heart in the book of Acts. How can Paul deny what God, if you think Jesus is God, taught? Our brothers and sisters are lost here. Because Jesus said, why do you call me Lord, Lord, but do not do what I say? Because Jesus fulfilled the law. Jesus kept the Sabbath, and Jesus was circumcised. In conclusion, therefore, the cost of cosmic innovation by the early church fathers and their achievement is monumental. Someone transformed an obscure Jewish sect theology into a global religion by weaponizing orality, Hellenism, and the hermeneutical creativity. Yet this hyperstition came at a cost. They were sold a dummy, they were sold a failed Messiah, and they were given a false spirituality called Christianity. Of course, the question then is, where does the power of Christianity comes from? It doesn't come from their religion, it comes from elsewhere. We have taught the sources where it comes from in many videos. What is at stake here is that since Christianity was shaped more by humans, not by any old tradition or ancient culture, what it means is that your salvation, your morality, and the authority that you have today is not coming from anything that is older than 2,000 years ago. It's a hyperstition. It's a fiction that has been made. The choice is yours, to cling to the fairy tale of an unchanging faith or confront the messy, thrilling truth that Christianity's foundation was laid not by angels but by fallible men who, for better or worse, changed the world. You want to see how? You need to discover your own way of salvation. It begins with you knowing that in African spirituality, true guidance comes from within, because the intuitive centers of the personality are aspects of the gods themselves. That's why you've got the divine spark. This is what the Hermenites taught and styled themselves in incantations of particular deities, a practice that can be observed all over Africa today. In Yoruba, in Nigeria, they refer people as children of Orisha. There is also this fundamental manifold truth about the unknowable, who is not a spirit or a being, not a male or a female, incomprehensible. The real creator is not God, is nameless. These are the things that we need to share to transform your future today enroll now today into Bantu University to study Bantu foundations, you can use the email that we are indicating here to get in touch with us. Thank you. Subscribe, share, and to discover for yourself the Afro salvation process, the real process, not the hyperstitious systems like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Thank you. Have a great day. Amen.